Good evening. The Charter Township, hold on. The Charter Township of Plymouth Board of Trustees meeting for Tuesday, October 13th, 2020 will come to order. Mr. Clerk, please take the roll.
Trustee Heitman. Here. Trustee Dempsey.
Present.
Clerk Vorvik here. Trustee Dorshevitz.
Here.
Trustee Kermey.
Here.
Treasurer Clinton.
Here.
Supervisor Heising.
Here.
All present. We have a quorum.
Okay, so tonight's trivia question is that we have 4 former state representatives in the office tonight. One of them is Mark Corvu, who will lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. Mark?
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Mark. Okay, next we are going to have a brief recognition of National Fire Prevention Week. Actually, it was last week, but we did not have a meeting, so we're going to officially recognize it posthumously. Today we have the proclamation. I'm not going to read it for you, so don't worry about that, but we would like to have Chief Phillips and his staff come forward. And just happy to present this proclamation again, gentlemen, for Fire Prevention Week. And I know that this year's theme is Serve Up Fire Safety in the Kitchen, because that's where a lot of fires occur, especially in a suburban area like ours. You know, I think you've probably seen an abundance of fires in the kitchen. So I'm going to pass that over to the chief, and he can hang that up at the station. And again, we all here on the Board of Trustees and everybody in the public, we appreciate greatly everything that you do for our community. We're here to help you in any way, and we know that you're always out there for us, especially during these very challenging times of COVID. While many of us have been in quarantine, your guys are out there every day protecting us and keeping us safe. So we really appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, next is approval of the agenda. What I'd like to do, since Mr. Corvu and his associate from Henry Ford Hospital are our guests tonight, I'd like to get them home to their families and make sure that they also have a chance to address us. So I'd like to amend the agenda to move item F1 basically as a new item D4, and then they will present before item E, if that makes sense. Okay? So I'd like to make a motion to approve the agenda for tonight as amended.
Second.
Okay, so motion is made by myself, seconded by Clerk Vorva. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Item D, any comments or questions on item D?
The consent agenda.
Yes, sir.
So on page 7 of the packet, at the top, I believe there's an error in the minutes right there, where after moved by Trustee Dorshevitz, blah, blah, it says ayes all on a roll call vote, but then the next statement is this motion was withdrawn. So I think that one sentence may be
Stricken.
a copy-paste error.
Yep.
So if we could strike that.
Yep.
Okay. Any other questions on item D?
One quick thing on the bills. I know the fire chief will be very happy that I'll no longer be in office, but Napa Auto Parts, come on, we can buy a grease gun in Plymouth Township. We don't have to go to Plymouth City to buy it for $108. I'd rather spend the money in the township. But other than that, I have no problem with consent agenda.
Okay. Anything else on item D? Hearing none, I need a motion on this item.
So moved.
Mr. Heitman makes the motion, seconded by Clerk Vorva. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Okay, Mr. Corvu, come on down. I invited Mark here tonight because we get a lot of questions on the Henry Ford Hospital project, and we are obviously very sensitive to the fact that COVID has dealt a heavy blow to everyone in the healthcare industry. And we always are getting questions from residents and guests about the status of the corner at Haggerty and Ann Arbor Road. And I know that I have almost weekly contact either with you or associates from Henry Ford, also from the general contractor for this project. And we have seen additional movement lately. We've seen some ground clearing. We've seen some tree and brush removal. So I wanted to brief the board and the public on this very exciting project, and then, of course, offer any assistance that we can to facilitate a more expeditious approval and moving forward on this very important project for all of Western Wayne County. So, Mark.
Thank you, Mr. Supervisor. Appreciate it. It's great to be back. It's always nice to come back to some rooms I've been in for different capacities, certainly, but no less nice to see some familiar faces. But just wanted to come back and report in, catch everybody up. Thank you again for the opportunity to do that. I was looking on my phone as we were coming up here. I can't remember when we first came before you, Mr. Supervisor, but it was to announce that we were excited about coming to the corner there at Ann Arbor and Hagerty. As you did indicate, it's been a tough period. Henry Ford Health System has been on the front lines and was a hot spot in the terrible times of March and April. But we were able to weather that. I think it's a testament to our system and our frontline workers that we were able to manage something that, for a lot of different reasons, came out of nowhere. Certainly the hospitalizations and the number that occurred in that time frame. There were days where things and beds were down to just a few. But the good news is we did weather that. Got some a little disturbing news today, off subject a little bit, but we are seeing an uptick in cases, so we have to be vigilant on our efforts to try to keep hospitalizations down, and that really is the issue for Henry Ford Health System. Our treatments are getting stronger, and our ability to treat our patients to recovery is getting better every day. But we need to be able to keep them out of the hospital. So anything that we can do as a community and as individuals to support that effort, Henry Ford and all hospital systems, quite frankly, appreciate that. So that's just a little look back, but we're here today with good news, very positive news. As Mr. Supervisor indicated, there was times where the future was uncertain, but I could tell you we remain committed. We remain excited about the opportunity that we have to put an additional footprint down here in Western Wayne County. We do have some new photos. They don't look incredibly different than the past. And as I looked around, I reminded myself that I didn't introduce Matt Manstay. I'm going to talk a little bit about our community engagement as we move forward, but Matt is the Director of Ambulatory Operations, so if there's questions that he's better suited to answer, I will bring him up and ask him to do that. But we, as you can see over there, the corner is progressing. Certainly the timeline has changed somewhat, but our commitment to moving forward to have patients in the near future, I think we think second quarter now 2022 is when we'll be able to see our first patient. We really want to make sure that this fall plays out like we believe it is. But when you look at the photos, we believe it will be an opportunity for the township to be proud. The reality of bringing us an additional facility. We have one up on Beck Road in the area, and then one just south of here. Those two will remain. This will be a full-service facility besides inpatient beds. It'll have an ER, be state-of-the-art, and I think something, as I said, that the township can be proud of. As I said, we are committed, and we will be committed to the community. I don't know if people recall seeing the new Rock magazine. I live in Northville, and there's been a magazine up there very similar to this for a while. It's one of the better publications, but we committed to advertising locally. There's a nice story in there about us. As we progress through the next months, you'll see additional articles. Not quite sure. There may be an update in there, but there will be certainly some health and wellness that we think can be valuable. And as I said about Matt and myself, I'm not going anywhere, but Henry Ford has a new model in terms of our community engagement. We have markets now. We have the north, the south, and traditionally what you would expect with that, with 8 Mile in our facilities in Oakland County and Wayne County. We also have a central market. But as we look at spreading our ambulatory footprint, we want to make sure that where we're doing business, we're also a part of the community. So we're putting together an engagement. I will oversee a good part of that, of making sure that we take part in the things that are important to you, whether it's the events in the city or events here in the township where you want to see a familiar face. And Matt will be that face at some times, and certainly with me still living in the community, I will be around as well. So I'll stop there, Mr. Supervisor. I mean, certainly there's things that we could talk about from a technical standpoint, but the project is moving forward. We're committed to it financially, and look forward to the time that we come back and maybe cut the ribbon as we open up the facility to take care of patients on this side of the Western Wayne County.
Question. I thought it was only outpatient. It's inpatient as well?
No, the only thing that it isn't is inpatient. It's all outpatient.
Oh, you said inpatient.
Oh, if I did, I misspoke. I said
Okay.
there will be no inpatient beds at the facility.
That's what
all
I thought.
did was-
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, you have several slides there. Could we just, Bob, I don't know if you can scroll through them. I think you're at number 1. Oh,
What date are you breaking ground, and what date is your target completion date?
Well, it depends on how you define breaking
Breaking
ground. We
ground.
already are cleaning and preparing the
Laying the foundation.
I didn't bring that date with me, but I'll circle back with the exact date. Certainly the weather's going to be an issue here soon. I think the more certain date that I picked up today is that we expect to see patients second quarter 2022.
So I have a question which has to do with the architectural design,
Sure.
which is fantastic. It's evocative of, I think, agricultural heritage out here in this part of the community. Is that the purpose, or is there some other
Yeah.
design focus behind it?
Well, I'll let Matt speak to it as well, but I believe if you look at our ambulatory facilities and you look at healthcare as a whole, fewer and fewer of our patients interactions are done in the acute setting or in the inpatient. Most of it is now ambulatory in the outpatient. Recognizing that and the fact that we're a part of communities, you'll see a softer, more welcoming. We understand that patients want to come and potentially do come to see us before they need us from a physical standpoint, and certainly after as follow-up. I think our West Bloomfield facility, if you've ever been out there, is a good example of recognizing that we want to be a part of people's lives, not just when they come in through an ER or for a surgery.
Good.
Matt, do you have any additional comments?
we just ask that you get closer to the mics, both of you. We're having a little hard time hearing you on TV.
Yeah, absolutely. Yes, it was picked up from the agricultural history of the area. So if you look at this design, we had 3 new ambulatory projects that are going up. One in downtown Royal Oak, Bloomfield Township opened last December. Those are in the same spirit. So if you look, the same materials and similar construction, but we did try and marry some of the things such as the shed-style roof to the areas where we're building. So definitely. Nice pickup.
No, I wouldn't have picked it up. I was going to ask a question. What is
I
agricultural
think you just made that
about
up, didn't you? I'm kidding.
The shed roof.
Let's start at the beginning again on the photos, on the drawings, because I think the audience would just like a little reference point. So that would be basically looking, if you were standing on Haggerty Road, looking towards the southeast. Next.
Yep.
So that's the emergency room entrance, and that would be facing directly towards Haggerty. And then Ann Arbor Road would be off in the distance. And that would be if you just walked a little bit further north on Haggerty and looked back. And that'd probably be if you were standing in the Heinz Park auto dealer and looking out there front. Yeah.
Have the outlots been sold or leased yet?
Good question. There is an outlot. It is not under our ownership, but we have conversations continually, but is not currently a piece of property that we own.
Do you have any say in what's going to go in those outlots?
Well, I think we would have an opinion. I think you guys would have the say, probably. But I
Would
think-
you like a say? Let's
Yeah,
go
sure.
there.
And I think the communication is there to happen. With a healthcare facility, there are things that might not go perfectly in that spot. I can think of a few. Some of them are maybe funny, not so funny, but,
Yeah.
we have thoughts, and, there are other medical types of operations that could end up there, but that's not our decision at that point, but it could be in the future.
Good.
Okay, any other questions for these gentlemen?
I think we have a microphone failure.
I think we've had some kind of microphone failure. I don't know
None of
what.
these are working.
Yeah.
Hello?
Supervisor,
Thank you, guys.
appreciate it. Look
Beautiful.
forward. We'll check in again at your invitation.
Okay.
If issues come up, if the community has issues or there's something on the ground that reach out to Matt and myself. We'll take care of those issues, but we feel like we'll do our work in making sure that as this thing is built, that we're not being too disruptive, but we'll get this going and look forward to the opening in 2022.
Beautiful.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
All right, thank you, gentlemen. Okay, thank you very much. Item E is next, and that's public comment, limited to 3 minutes. This will not be your only opportunity during the evening. There'll be another opportunity for public comment at the end of the meeting, and we also encourage questions on individual agenda items as long as they are germane to that particular item. So at this time, would anybody like to make a public comment?
Jerry, there's nothing here on the microphone yet.
No, we know. Okay. So while we're waiting, does anybody interested? Because we can still move on even while he's rebooting. All right, then we're gonna move on then to item F2. This is update on the township master plan. Laura Hawes, our township planner, and she will get herself set up here while Jerry reboots. And Laura can give us a summation of the architectural design elements of the Henry Ford Hospital project for our edification.
And what the future planning possibilities are. So that's currently where we are in the master planning process. The next step would be public engagement, which we're looking at the end of November to conduct. Would you like me to go through in detail, or if we're not?
I don't believe we are on television at this point. I don't know if we're going to be able to get back on. They're scrambling to figure that out. So, but we still don't have sound. So.
It'd be good to hear the top 3 or 4 trends
Sure.
on each page.
But like the median age, we're the oldest of anybody around us.
Sure. So since the early 2000s, the population of the township has been relatively stable. Over 27,000. The largest growth really occurred between the 60s and 70s. That corresponds to the majority of the housing stock built by then. In the next 25 years, SEMCOG does predict that the township will gain another 3,000 residents. So that equates to about 120 residents a year, or 50 new households every year. So 50 new housing units based on the average household size today. In terms of the age trends, yes, the township is an older community. The median age is now 45 and a half, which that is an increase of almost 15% from 2000 where it was 39. The township, though, is expected to see an increase in the next 25 years of those between the ages of 18 and 54. So that will level it out a little bit, but it is important that the community, maintain a policy of trying to attract young professionals and family-forming households. And then just racially, the township is not very diverse, as you can see. In terms of housing trends, there's been a slight increase in housing units over the past 8 years, but this doesn't include some of the housing that was approved in the past year or so. So for instance, even Verona Park, those are not constructed units, so they're not showing up in the statistics. The majority of homes, over 81%, are owner-occupied. This is the highest percentage of owner-occupied housing in terms of the comparison communities, and then also drastically different than Wayne County or the state.
Is that what housing tenure means?
Yes, so there's a greater proportion of owner-occupied versus renter-occupied in the township. typically it's about 20%, or 20 to 25% renter. Yep, the renter would include apartments, but not owner occupied. On the housing trends continued slide, over 60% of the housing stock was constructed prior to 1980. So typically, housing stock that is 50 years or older can be a barrier to those aging in place. You know, it's harder to retrofit some existing homes for ADA accessibility. Maybe there's no first floor master, maybe the laundry's in the basement. So when thinking about aging in place in the community, that is something to take into consideration. Although I think, you know, on the other hand, over 600 residential homes were constructed before in 1950. So there is perhaps an opportunity for the historic housing stock and relevance to the Historic District Commission.
What does that large circle say?
Yep, so this chart is scaled to the housing types in the township. So the large blue represents the detached single-family homes. And then the smaller circles represent the proportion of housing stock that is, you know, duplex or 2 to 4 unit multifamily buildings, multifamily buildings that have 10 or more units, and so on.
It's showing the relative distribution, the size of the circle, right?
Yes, correct.
Yeah.
And the median value of a single family is just under $300,000. In terms of the household income and poverty, the township remains a relatively high household income, although it's 83,000. In 2010, it was 104. So there has been a decrease, which I think is mostly attributed to a number of retirees in the community. Less than 5% of the township is living in poverty. And that diagram is also scalable. So in blue would be Wayne County, and then the state poverty rate in green.
And what's the definition of poverty again?
So it's those between the ages of 19 and 64 that if it's a single individual, they make less than $19,000, and then if it's a family, I think it's 40 maybe, or in the 30s. It's in the 30s.
IRS data or from census?
Census.
So it's only once every 10 years.
Well, it's from
They do
the
updates.
American Community Survey. So
SEMCOG is always updating their information.
And the Census Bureau does interim updates.
they do.
Yeah.
Since we're on this right now, what's the census?
Yes.
Is it completed in Plymouth Township? And what is our confidence that we captured everybody?
Well, Chuck, I can answer that. We have, it's been about a week since I last checked, but you can go online and you can see Plymouth Township's numbers and our response rate. I think the last time I checked, I want to say it was in the 80s.
Yeah, it was 83 the last time, yeah.
84%, which is one of the highest in the state.
That's a big gap between that and 100%.
Indeed, but, you know, that's the reality of it.
I think we were third highest in the state the last I looked.
Yeah, I mean, we're among the highest in the state. I don't think anybody ever has gotten 100%. I think maybe Livonia once got, So anyway, we're live. Okay. Are we on TV, Sue? No? Okay. 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 Okay, well, we're going to keep moving forward, so.
Yeah.
Okay, so Chuck, that's the situation with the census, and we can go online and we can update that information for you at some point.
I'm just worried that we'll have an undercount. Looks like the whole state is acquiescing to an undercount.
You know, the numbers, the response rate's going to be what the response rate is, and I think that the federal government is cutting off the response time, I believe, at the end of October.
Yep.
So it's going to be what it's going to be. and ours is still going to be one of the highest in the state. Okay, Laura, let's move. I want to move on here. So, the situation right now is I want to clarify for the sake of the public and the board why we are doing this, because this demographic data is very interesting. But really, this is about updating the master plan for the township, which is basically the map that we use to determine current and future zoning and planning processes for the township. So this is done by the Planning Commission.
Correct.
Public hearings are going to be done by the Planning Commission. Do we have to do a public hearing at some point?
Not a public hearing, but there will be a meeting for adoption consideration, and the township board will release the plan for distribution.
Okay. And then this is required every 5 years, I believe?
Correct. By the Michigan Planning Enabling Act.
Okay. Okay. And so Bob Dorshevitz is our delegate to the Planning Commission. So you guys are you touching this at every meeting?
Yeah, she presented, what, it was last meeting, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
September.
Okay.
yeah.
Okay. Laura, anything else you'd like to share with us?
I'll send out the PowerPoint to you, and
Okay.
so you can see it in more detail.
Okay. All right. Any other questions for Laura?
Laura, I got a quick question. Employment rate, we're lowest of our neighboring communities.
Yeah.
Is that also obviously retirement and
Where you at, Gary?
education, right at the very top left up there?
Oh,
Retirement and our age is probably working against us in that category?
Yes, I think so. So this is the civilian labor force that's 16 years or older, and in 2012 it was 59%. So we really haven't changed that much. But since 2000, right, our age has gotten much older. So I think it's just representative of that.
well, it's not only that, but, you know, that number can be a little bit, if you peel back the layers, in some cases, there are more families in Plymouth Township that can afford to have only one working parent than you may see in other communities.
Single head of household.
Yeah. So you see, so that can sometimes be a statistic that is misunderstood.
Laura, is there any, and I didn't see anything that shows how many people work in Plymouth Township?
Right here, Gary, daytime population.
Okay, so daytime population, so 36,000. We know how that number has changed, or, I mean, with all the new businesses we've got coming in and the hospitals and things like that, I expect that number to be jumping pretty rapidly.
Really? I think the number of people working in Plymouth Township is probably a lot less, because we've had major closures of the Ford plant, Burroughs.
Look at Webasto, look at Rivian, look at Bosch. Those are growing. And we're
Right, they're
bringing-
growing, but I don't think it's offset the shrinkage, but we'll see.
I don't know, we bring in 1,000 jobs.
So let's look at it.
Yeah, that's a good point to take a look at. I do think that the statistic, though, of the 36,000 for the daytime population, you know, that's a positive trend, considering that the population is just 27,000. So we do see a swell of employees during the work week.
So that backs out the people who commute from Plymouth to another community, or not? Or it just adds the people together, assumes everybody in Plymouth stayed in Plymouth? Trying to understand the methodology of the way it's calculated.
Nope, so it would not include anyone who lives in Plymouth and would go to Livonia for their employment. So anyone that lives in Plymouth and works in Plymouth, or anyone that comes to Plymouth to work.
But this number is pre-COVID, and
Yeah.
the world is going to change
Right. But this
permanently.
number won't mean anything after COVID.
No, because so many people will be working
Working from
remote,
home, yeah.
and we're not gonna go back.
I have two questions, Ms. Ha. One is there in this, or is there available something that talks about internet accessibility within the township? Do we have areas that aren't covered is the quality of it? That's more than one question, but that's one group of questions. So can you answer that before I get to my second question?
Yes, as for
digital
the
divide.
quality of itself of the internet, I can't speak to, but I think the statistic of households with a computer in the township is in the mid-90s, and then households with an internet subscription is in the high 80s, maybe 89. So that is higher than other communities.
Wow, that's lower than I thought it would be. 89%.
We
So
have a
that's the
lot-
number when people say availability of broadband, that's the number we look at, 89?
A lot of people maybe just use their phone.
We have 100% broadband coverage, but
Yeah.
we have 89% of the people that are actually utilizing it.
Subscribers.
Yeah.
Households.
And that's why, that's why when we talk about Zoom meetings and public access to public meetings on the internet, it doesn't cover everybody. So I'll just remind everybody about that.
So my second question,
Yeah, go
sorry,
ahead.
is, I'm sorry, I blanked on the timetable. So you said public engagement in November. When does the Planning Commission approve the master plan?
It's probably going to be in early 2021.
Okay, and then it would come to the Board of Trustees after that.
Correct.
Thank you.
And then we'll be looking at the map again as far as where we would like to see industrial, light industrial, technology and research, things like that, because we do have some corridors, and if you want, I would encourage you to go back and look at our Citizens Advisory Council recommendations from 2017, because at that time we were looking at basically the Plymouth Road corridor, 5 Mile, 5 and Ridge, back, and how to balance growth and livability in those areas as well.
That's great. We will take a look at that. And the future land use map of the master plan is a critical component because that's what the Planning Commission uses kind of as their playbook for new development.
Okay.
Well, it's good to see the technology and research numbers have gone up 163% in the last 5 years. Obviously 330 acres. And the big push of the recreation and open space, we lost 44 acres in the last 5 years. So that's less than 9 acres a year. But the technology number and the jobs coming in associated with that are great. So thank you.
Okay, any other questions for Laura? Anybody in the audience? Okay, thank you very much. We will keep us apprised as you continue, and then also on the Planning Commission, we'll be in touch with the planning commissioners as well and provide them with any advice that they need. Thank you. Okay, next is item F3. This is the Woods sanitary sewer easement. Jeremy?
This is a residential development on Ann Arbor Road, just east of McClumpha. It's about nine units. The first item is for the sanitary sewer easement, which is just a legal document that requires approval by the board. So the clerk and lawyer, or the clerk and the township attorney and the township engineer can sign it.
Okay, any questions on this? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion.
Mr. Supervisor.
Mr. Heitman?
I move to adopt Resolution 2020-10-13-94, authorizing the township clerk, township attorney, and township engineer to sign the sanitary sewer easement for the Woods and to authorize the recording of the same.
Thank you. Motion's made by Trustee Heitman. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Trustee Dempsey. Mr. Clerk, please take the roll.
Clerk Borba, yes. Treasurer Clinton?
Yes.
Trustee Kermy?
Yes.
Trustee Dempsey?
Yes.
Trustee Dorchevitz?
Yes.
Supervisor Heisey?
Yes.
Trustee Heitman?
Yes.
Motion carried.
Okay. Item F4 is the Woods water main easement. Jeremy?
This is the water main easement for the exact same development.
Okay.
Mr.
Anything
Supervisor.
special? Nothing special?
Nothing
Okay.
special.
All right. I need a motion on this.
Mr. Supervisor.
Mr. Heitman?
I move to adopt Resolution 2020-10-13-95, authorizing the township clerk, township attorney, and township engineer to sign the water main easement for the Woods and to authorize the recording of same.
Second.
Motion's made by trustee Heitman, seconded by trustee Kermy. Mr. Clerk, please take the roll.
Treasurer Clinton.
Yes.
Trustee Kermy.
Yes.
Trustee Dempsey.
Yes.
Trustee Dorchevitz.
Yep.
Supervisor Heisey.
Yes.
Trustee Heitman.
Yes.
Clerk Borba, yes. Motion carries.
Okay, we're moving on to the main event tonight. That is general government budget with Ginger Moriarty. Yeah, I think Ginger can come forward, but she's going to need, can she get somebody's, I don't know. Well, I'm just concerned that it's not going to work, so. And I think, Ginger, you can remove the mask because we can hear you better.
I like taller white.
So you want to do a sound check right now? I'm just, in light of the
Good
Brown.
evening, board members, administration. My name is Ginger Moriarty.
We hear her? Give her one of yours.
Can you hear me now?
Better.
I like a Verizon commercial. Stop properly.
Just tell us what the timeline is, and, for when the public hearing is going to be, that kind of thing.
Well, the public hearing is going to be at our next meeting on October 27th. That's already been posted. That's required by state law. That night, we will also be doing the water budget and the enterprise fund budgets. Those are not required to be public noticed in a similar fashion, but our intention is to vote on those budgets as well as general government and police and fire on Tuesday, November 10th.
So tonight, for your consideration, Supervisor Heisey and myself have presented to you a balanced general fund budget with financing sources exceeding financing uses in the amount of $66,100. Fiscal year 2021 general fund budget includes a total of $543,500 in requested capital outlay expenditures, in addition to $75,000 to be set aside for reserves as future capital outlays in the Township Improvement Capital Revolving Fund, bringing the total capital outlay requested to $618,500, making up 3.6% of the general fund's requested expenditure budget. I'll let you know what I want you to do.
Okay, so what slide are you on?
I'm not yet.
You're not on a slide.
Well, let's bring up page 71 at least of the PDF.
Could I complete the presentation and then we can move around into the
all right.
PDF,
There you
please?
go. Sure.
So the increase or the surplus over the 2021 proposed budget is primarily due to the reclassification of the eligible expenditures from the law enforcement, which were reclassified to both the federal and the state forfeiture funds in the amount of $214,000.
Okay, I'm sorry, where do you want to be on? Do we want to be on the board materials or on the presentation right now?
I'm kind of reading from the first two pages of the memo.
Sorry.
I'm reading from the first two pages of
Okay.
the budget memo
Okay,
in the board packet.
okay, that's what I thought. Okay, that's fine. I'll try to keep up.
So that's page 71.
71, Ginger?
It's by page one.
Okay,
Okay, it's
Your page one.
Sorry, I don't have the entire packet.
that's okay. You're fine.
Okay, so in your packet tonight is the governmental funds and the capital funds. We will begin with the general fund budget, which has revenues of 17.9 million and revenue of 17.9 million and expenditures of 17.3. Also for your consideration tonight is the Brownfield Redevelopment Authority, which has revenues of $310,200 and expenditures of $385,100 that was approved by the BRA board on October 12th. Also, on October 12th, the Downtown Development Authority, having revenues of $419,300 and expenditures of $257,000, approved their 2021 budget. Also included in your packet are the 3 revised drug forfeiture budgets that were presented to you on September 22nd. These budgets include the revisions of the capital and non-capital outlay items that the police chief presented to you, and included both capital and non-capital items to both the federal and to the state forfeiture. Also included in your packet is the improvement revolving fund with revenues of $75,000. Could you go to slide 1, please, of my PowerPoint?
That one? Yeah.
So before you, I present to you the fiscal year 2021 major funding categories for a total of $17.9 million in revenue sources. The largest source of revenue for the township is property taxes, which make up 58.4%, or just roughly $10.5 million. This is made up of the township millages, the property tax administration fee, and also trailer park tax fees. The second largest source of revenue for the township is state shared revenue at $2.4 million, which makes up 13.4% of our total funding sources. The third largest category is township program revenue, which makes up 13.1%, or $2.4 million of the total financing sources. Program revenue is made up of items like building permits, cable TV fees, fire transport, and other items of that nature. Slide 2. Slide 2 presents to you the general fund financing uses or expenditures. These are the major categories that are spent in the township of the general fund budget, which are made up primarily of the wages and salaries, which make up 50.3% of the total expenditures in the township, or roughly $8.7 million. The second item that you'll see is pension and retirement, consisting of $2.6 million and makes up roughly 15.4% of all of our funding sources for our expenditure budget. And the third largest category being contractual service that makes up 12% of our budget, or basically $2 million of the total 17.3 being requested.
What is a contractual service?
Contractual services would be things like pest control, mowing the lawn. It might be a service for our alarms.
Is
It
the
might
golf
be-
course management
Professional
fee in there?
services.
Golf
sorry?
course management fee, is it in that contractual services?
That would be in that. It would be in the parks budget, and it would be found under contractual services. I'm sorry, Bob, what was your question?
No, that's okay, I was just clarifying. It's professional services.
It's contractual and professional services. So that would include our planner, it would include our legal services, our assessing contracts, our lawn mowing contracts, our engineering contracts.
Services, hence the word services.
It's a service, there's no good, no tangible
Hence the
good.
word service.
Slide 3. Slide 3 is a side-by-side comparison. What I presented to you is basically the information that is found on each department or each function's budget. It provides you with a historical actual for the 2 prior years. It shows you the adopted budget from fiscal year 2020. And as a comparison to that, I have presented a fiscal year 2021 requested budget by each function of the general fund for a total requested expenditure of $17.3 million and total requested revenue of $17.9, reflecting that our funding sources over our funding uses exceeds $661,000 as proposed this evening.
Which 2 departments had the biggest increase and which 2 had the greatest decrease?
So the largest increase, you'll see if you're looking at our sheet, I basically started with the operating. It shows a change of negative $927,000. This is primarily due to a reduction in our one-time OPEB contribution. We were in year 3 of 6, and our one-time contribution has decreased from $1 million in fiscal year 20 to $250,000 in fiscal year 2021. You'll also see that there is a change in the elections. The elections is in the top part, reduction of $242,000. This change in budget is reflected of the fact that there are no scheduled state or local elections for fiscal year 21.
Jerry certainly hopes so.
Not that we're aware of at this time. The increase of $172,000 to the law enforcement, which was talked about at the last budget meeting, $172,000 increase, or a 3.8% over last year's budget, is primarily due to wages and benefactors, wages, salaries, healthcare, retirement of $128,000, as well as capital outlay increase over last year, $58,000. The fire department is an increase of $198,000 over last year, or roughly 4.3%. This is due also to wages and pension. Wages and increasing $118,000, and pension and retirement $156,000. That would be for both the pension program and the retirement program, both. You also see an increase to parks of $111,000.
You skipped the jail at 100% increase.
I'm sorry?
The jail.
Okay, so jail before was part of the dispatch. So jail and dispatch were a combined function.
Yeah.
So that we could just delineate between the dispatch function and the jail function, I have moved the jail function into its own category for fiscal year 21. And I've also done this for our reporting. Each year we file an annual report with the Conference of Western Wayne, and we are only allowed to report eligible dispatch expenditures. So this will ensure that we have all of the expenditures strictly for jail or corrections separated from the actual dispatch operation.
Hey, Ginger, I have a question from the board packet, if I may, and sorry if I go a little bit out of sequence, but I want to ask it while I can. So it's on page, let's see where the breakdown is. 7?
Just,
right here.
just grab your mic, Bob.
Sorry. On page 77 of the board packet, right here, the property taxes, I didn't understand this. Why it showed, hang on.
1.3 million.
We got a new computer here. This PDF reader is a little different. So we went from 3.2 million in 18 to 4.5 in 19 to 3.3 in 20. I don't understand why this property tax revenue is bouncing like it is.
I'll let Mark
Yeah, let me-
speak to this.
Let me address it. When it's just an allocation of our total property taxes. So when I first started doing this in 2017, I followed the exact same ratio that we had used in previous years. So when we get property taxes, we divide that across general operating, fire, and police. And everybody was allocated a percentage. I kept that percentage always consistent so we could show year-over-year trends that would not prompt a question like that. In reality, it doesn't make sense the way it was done. And Ginger and I have had discussions about that over the last couple of years, and we changed the methodology to better reflect what the millage rate is that we're collecting.
Okay.
So when you have a line item on your tax bill that says general operating, that will go in the general operating. Then we allocate police and fire accordingly. I wouldn't get caught up in how we divide the property taxes across those buckets. It's more important to look at it in total.
Okay.
But it's a fair question.
Okay, I get it now.
We also adopt revenue by fund. So all of that rolls up as general operating, as general fund revenue at the end of the year.
I wasn't real clear why there were several line items that were property taxes, but if you sum them all up, then you would get, the same number. It's just the allocation, and it makes sense.
Yep.
Thank you.
Ginger, on the jail budget, does that include any of our anticipated new costs relating to housing prisoners at the Wayne County Jail?
Yes, that includes the housing prisoners that was originally being paid directly by the court. That was budgeted for in the jail. I didn't know if that was talked about at the last meeting when the public safety budgets were presented.
We've had some discussions over the last couple months, and I'm sure I've sent the board some emails from the court, but just to refresh everybody's memory that the court no longer has a contract with the private jail operator that we were using for the 35th District Court. That contract has been terminated. I presume it was COVID-related, or at least that's the excuse that they're giving us. So for any individuals that we have to house at our level, that we're not talking about a lot. I mean, we don't have that. We're not incarcerating people to that degree where they're going to be held for long periods of time. But in those cases where we do, we are going to have to send them to the Wayne County Jail facilities. And then, of course, we are going to have to pay them for that service. But I don't think that's going to be a budget buster one way or the other. It's really just more of an inconvenience than anything else. And I think it doesn't portend well for the future of the 35th District Court. We cannot predict right now, but I've got to think that they're going to be losing a ton of money this year, and I will not be surprised if they come back to the communities and ask for us to help bail them out.
When's the next election of judges?
There's one in 3 weeks.
Right, after that?
After that, 4 years.
4 years.
But he's running unopposed, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, right.
I'm just answering the question.
May we go back to property tax again, please? The 2018 activity of $3,204,000. Is that all of the property tax in that year in 2018? Or has it been somewhere else? What I'm looking at is the difference between $3,204,000 and then way on the right side, this is page, it's got a 3-hole punch to it, so it's page 204. We were just on it.
I have
Right,
page
let's go
numbers.
back to, can we go back to that?
I have page numbers in the bottom left-hand corner of the slides. So the
Not
revenue,
these slides.
The general fund revenue is on page.
I'm looking at what came out in the board packet, which is what's
Okay.
on the
Well, it's
screen.
on page 8, in the bottom right-hand corner, it says page 8. That's where the general fund revenue
Page
begins.
204,
And at the
Page
bottom
8.
of page 10 of your packet, bottom right-hand corner of the budget packet, says page 10, shows your total.
estimated revenue.
At each of the general fund property taxes, we have 3 property tax lines. One you will find in the 101-290 for the general operating.
Here, let's pause for a minute till I can find it, because I'm confused. As the page numbers restart, and the bottom right,
Bottom
Page-
right, page 8,
page 8, that's what I'm on,
okay?
which is that one on the screen.
And if you look at the third line item from the bottom, you'll see property tax revenue that starts with 101-336-403.
2,295,000.
That's 2.3 million, or almost 2.4 million. That's the fire revenue or portion. If you go up, further up the page to 305, 101, 305, 403, property tax, that's the police.
324.
And the 2020 budget for that is 3.3, or almost 3.37. And if you go up to,
You have to go down.
you have to go down to get to the other one?
But
There's a
What I'm looking at is-
101,
Chuck, the
403.
bottom line is that we've taken the total property tax revenue that is collected, roughly 9.5 million, and then we have manually allocated that across 3 different departments: general operating, fire, and police.
It could really all go into one line item. The total is $10,511,700 that makes up the 3 property tax revenue sources. within the general fund.
What was the number, 10 million what?
10,511,700, that's on slide 1.
All right, what caught my eye was that line 101,305, the difference between 3.2 million and 4.8.
Yeah, so that was
That's
the information
50%
that Mark
increase,
just
and I'm trying to
explained.
understand.
No, that's
There
the
was a
exact question
reallocation.
that I answered for Bob, which is we changed our allocation method between those years. It's, so you can't really.
So you can't compare that.
You can't really compare the trends because we changed how we allocated across those three
It
departments.
would be helpful maybe to clarify, 2018, what was the total property tax revenue collected, irrespective of the allocations, and the same in 19, same in 20, same in 21. That would be kind of helpful.
Yeah, that eliminates the Where's Waldo syndrome
Yeah.
in this schedule.
Okay, let's get back on track here.
So if we go back to slide 3, please.
This is,
One more.
which one, is this 3?
Please advance one slide.
Sorry.
One more.
Okay, this is 3.
So we were on the park increase of a 111,000. I recall. Oh, my stuff is a little discombobulated. So the last item that we were talking about was the park increase of $111,000. There, that represents the increase due to the Hilltop annual contractual services contract, which makes up $73,000 of that. That's due to the collapse of the 510 Golf Course Fund, which was talked about during the fiscal year 19 audit presentation, where the golf course was collapsed into the general fund and now is part of the Parks and Recreation Department. And capital outlay increase of $32,000 over the prior year for various projects. You'll see those within the actual park budget. And I believe I have that noted on the statistics on the park page, beginning on page 93 of the packet. Total fiscal 2021 expenditures reflect a reduction of $259,000 over the 2020 budget. Next slide.
One second, if I may. Okay, now I'm understanding this.
250.
Okay.
Okay, so this slide is, the first slide was to kind of show you where all of the various funding sources and what they were and what the balances of those were and what part of the budget is made up of each of those funding sources. This explains the general fund budget by department or its function. And I broke it down into some major categories, beginning with administration, general operating, public safety, building and planning and zoning, parks and recreation, and senior services. This is the entire budget packet for the general fund, but in a snapshot to show you where all of those dollars are going. So if the request is $17.3 million, you can see that administrative services make up 10.9% of the pie, or represent $1.8 million of the $17.3 million being requested. Our general operation makes up 16.1%, or roughly $2.8 million. The general operating includes the information services, which is our IT department, civil service board, township grounds and halls, general operation, traffic safety, and insurance. The biggest item that you see on there is our general operating. The general operating is for items that are not function specific. This would include our debt service for our various bond payments. This includes the one-time OPEB contribution that we're making to fund the OPEB to get to our 40%. This includes computer services for the entire general fund budget. This would be for our firewall, our server, our network. And this also includes legal services for the township and the insurance, which is the $366,000. The largest portion of our budget is public safety. We have 5 functions within the public safety department, makes up roughly $11 million of the $17.3 million being requested, and is 63, almost 64% of our expenditure budget. The Building and Planning Department makes up just under $1 million of the requested budget, or 5.7%, and this includes the Building Department, Planning Department, the Planning and Zoning Boards and Commissions.
What is your assumption for building revenue next year, and how did you develop it?
Well,
Building fee revenue.
these are typically trends year over year. While 2020, we've seen a decrease in revenue due to COVID, we looked at fiscal year 19 as our basis and looked at some of the trends between fiscal year 18 to fiscal year 19 and made some assumptions for fiscal year 2021. Assuming things resume normalcy or some sort of normalcy next year, this is how we've developed the budget.
So how can we see year-over-year comparison in these categories the same way that in the same fashion that I had asked in the previous one? That would be really helpful. We see,
Well, I didn't do a budget comparison in that way. I didn't believe that had been presented to you before. I really just wanted to show you the 21 and what
Yeah.
the makeup of that was. If
But
you
it-
want
it-
something similar to that for trends for overall, I can
Yeah.
put together some trend reports for the adoption budget if you would like to see that.
yeah, that would be really helpful. Thank you.
Yes. Because it's difficult, unless you work with it every day, you can't get a gauge for, it looks like the overall spending is below inflation. I think it was 1.1. Is that right? The overall budget, that
Well,
page,
you have to keep in mind.
thought I
that
saw
we
1.1 on
also-
there.
Our funding level for OPEB went from $1 million to $250, so that makes up approximately $750,000, and our surplus is $600.
Can you refresh why it dropped so much? Was that the
There is a
original plan?
There's a 6-year funding plan that the board approved. And in the first 3 years, you had a funding requirement, I believe, of 1.2 million, 1 million, and 1 million. In year 3, or year 2021, that funding level went from 1 million to 250,000. I do have that budget packet with me.
All right, so that's part of the actuarial calculation and the plan we made. No surprise. Okay.
That was the one-time contribution. Also keep in mind that when healthcare rates are increasing, the township is also continuing to do the pay-as-you-go. So as we receive retiree healthcare, we pay for that as the expenses are incurred, in addition to the one-time contribution being made. So as we have additional retirees that are added to the plan, or individuals that are no longer eligible for the plan, those numbers will fluctuate slightly until 100% of all of the employees that are eligible have retired.
The term one-term contribution is.
One time.
One time is what I'm questioning, because that's one time every year, right?
Time
So it's an
every year for
annual,
6 years.
it's an annual contribution that we make to OPEB.
Correct.
I think that's an important thing that we have.
That's a better descriptor, because one
Yeah.
time, most people perceive it as
Yeah.
lump sum.
Right.
Just to refresh your memory, when we had to submit a corrective action plan to the state on how we were going to get to 40% funding of our OPEB obligations, I worked with the actuarial firm, and we came up with a funding plan that we put in. It was a grand total of, I can't remember now if it's 5 or 6 years. I think it was 5 years. We put in 1.2 million the first year, 1 million the next year, then 250,000, 250,000, 250,000. And then you let it sit and you let it grow. And then the actuarial assumptions based upon investment growth and what healthcare costs are going to do, we will hit that 40% target in the year 2035. So that funding plan that we're currently executing on was approved by the state of Michigan and approved by our actuaries.
So we had to front load it, basically.
Yes.
Fair enough. Okay.
'Cause
So
it was
so
zero.
that's an annual, it's at least, just for clarification, it's our annual contribution.
Until 2024.
Okay.
Okay, questions, additional questions, I'll welcome them at this time.
All right, I have a couple.
We're
Number
not
one,
done, you're not done yet, are you?
With my PowerPoint, I am.
Oh.
so you're ready for questions? We've already said a lot. Thank you for letting us interrupt. The plan to build a sidewalk on North Territorial Road that we canceled because of COVID and losing funding from Wayne County. What was that, about $200,000 we took it out this year?
It was, they were going to give us about, 270,000, and then we matched it with 30,000.
All right, is that
That was
in,
fiscal year 19.
pardon?
Just, no. We matched it, so what's the question, Chuck?
Question is it in our 2021 budget? I
No.
couldn't find it.
No.
All right, I'm suggesting or recommending we put it back in.
The full 300 grand?
Yeah, we got $600,000 windfall a month ago,
What is this for again?
I'm not spending COVID money on sidewalks.
but where did okay, then I want to know, where is the COVID money? What budget is that in? And are we putting it in the fund balance? The $600,000 we received last month from COVID money through the state of Michigan, federal government.
Okay, so totally different question. So we're not talking about sidewalks anymore.
Well, no,
We're talking about
I'm coming
where,
up with a way to
where's the
fund it.
COVID. So
I'm
the
coming up
question
with a
for
way to
Ginger
fund
is,
it.
where's the COVID money going?
Wait,
The
go back to the
COVID.
sidewalk. What are you talking about sidewalk and North
We had
Territory?
planned to build the sidewalk. We took, I think we even took quotes, right, Jeremy? We had the quotes, and we had to cancel it because of COVID.
Where? Where on North?
Well, we canceled it because Wayne County wanted their money back.
Right,
so-
but that's because of COVID.
Yeah.
They said they needed the money.
Right.
So what I'm proposing is we look at reinstating that for 2021. And I offered a way to pay for it.
That
Which is
was
the-
not, there was two factors on why that program was canceled. Number one, Wayne County wanted their money back. Number two, the homeowners along North Territorial put up a major stink. They did not want, and we were looking at perhaps enforcing an easement where we could put in a sidewalk, but there were 3 homeowners right up on North Territorial that absolutely refused to have a sidewalk.
we
through
had
their
Where
all
at,
the
Mark, where are you talking about on North Territory?
You know where that cemetery is, Shear Cemetery?
Oh, there.
And you have
Going
that-
east.
And then you have the pond there.
Yeah,
And then you
yeah,
have,
yeah.
there's a woman who's, we were gonna rip up 100-year-old trees.
Yeah.
And,
What?
and
We had it all laid out. And Jeremy, please weigh in on this. We had taken bids and we were ready to break ground in the spring, which means we had the easements usually when you take bids.
No, we didn't need easements because we were building it within the right-of-way.
Okay, there you answered the question. We didn't need easements. So we were ready to go. So,
We took bids, we also took bids on that and the sidewalk replacement program. So that's what we just bundled them all up.
right. So we know exactly how much it can cost.
Well, I mean, if you want to spend $300,000 of our own money on sidewalks that some of the people still don't want, I mean, that's going to be a board decision, obviously.
Well, I would like to know what the fund balances are for those accounts. Not tonight, but for the next meeting. It's obviously not 300,000, but
Well, our general fund budget, fund balance at the end of fiscal year 19 was 4.6 million.
No.
2.6 of that is unassigned.
No, I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about the sidewalk.
You mean the SAD revolving improvement?
Maybe if we go to page 78. It looks like you've reclassified a couple of these.
This page?
Give us, because it's hole punched, what is at the bottom, what does it say?
It's page
Should be in the
9.
bottom right-hand corner.
So
Page 9 is part of the revenue packet,
Page 9,
not the expenditure.
tree sales.
So I'm looking at page 9, which
Okay,
is
that's
page
revenues.
78 of the packet. And there are 2 line items, payment in lieu trees, payment in lieu sidewalks.
Those are revenues. In the event that someone purchases trees or pays for sidewalks, that's where the revenue would go into the general fund.
And you show 0 in 2021 on those 2 line items.
They have been moved to
Exactly.
701.
Yes, so why were they moved? That's question
They're
1.
part of the planning.
I'm sorry?
They're part of our planning function, so they were put into the planning and moved out of the building. The building is the 371 that you see, 101-371 is building department.
Okay.
Planning was moved out of the building into its own separate function, and it's now in 701.
So they're
So
at the-
we've matched up both the revenues that are a direct reflection of the planning function, as well as the expenditures associated with that function, so that we could get a true cost.
Okay. So, did you transfer the balances associated with those items into these new accounts?
Yes, the budget has been prepared in the planning function for $20,000 in trees revenue and $20,000 in sidewalk revenue, as well as the matching
bottom line and-
expenditure budget for the payment of the trees when we buy the trees and for the cost to purchase the sidewalks.
Okay.
So we would first make the payment for them, and then we would invoice and we would receive the revenue in. So it would, in retrospect, be a net zero. So you
So
have
it
a
went to the
revenue
bottom
source
line of that tree
and you have an
sales, and the
expenditure
next,
source.
top
So
of the
both are
next page.
budgeted.
You can see them both on there.
So if I go to the expenditure page,
The page you're on, go to the very bottom, and it's tree sales payment in lieu.
The planning
2021.
department,
is this revenue or is this expenditures?
the page you're on is revenue.
Right. So the
So the
expenditure page is
expenditure-
where?
The expenditure for that's going to be on page 89 for
89?
planning.
Page 80.
So
Well, it
bear in
starts
mind
on
that we
page
do
89.
expect to have an SAD sidewalk program in 2021. And
That's-
so we
that's
are, we,
separate from
so I
this.
know, no, I understand, and that's why I'm clarifying that. So there's no sidewalk fund for us to build sidewalks on our own. Okay, we either commit a large sum of money, or we have to look for assistance from the county, as we have done in the past. Now, the county may bring money back to us, but right now, they've withdrawn everything. So
Yep.
they've withdrawn park money.
Yep.
So I don't even know if we're going to get park money next year.
you'll
So
see-
just assume that we're not going to get anything from the county for next year.
Jack, it's on page 89. You'll see the expenditures there. So they equal the revenue source.
So let's go back to the COVID money we received, the 600,000. What are you planning to do with that? Because we didn't suffer any revenue decreases anywhere, so it's a net 600,000 increase. Where are we putting it?
The COVID funding has specific rules and outline that what the eligible expenditures are. Eligible expenditures, for example, are hazard pay. We received funding for hazard pay. The hazard pay was paid out. I will be presenting to the board.
That's the $1,000 per person?
It was $1,000 per person. The award was $66,000, and that went to the fire, the police, and the dispatch, only to the officers. We also received some COVID funding for PPE, protection equipment, buying sanitizer, gloves, masks, things of this nature. All of those items are eligible for reimbursement. We received grant funding of $25,215. We are in the process of collecting all of the receipts. This was an advance funding, and we will be making a quarterly filing with the state with our information to keep that as a source of revenue. That will be coming before the board, as well as a budget amendment to recognize that revenue that we received, as well as to appropriate that amount in the same for the eligible expenditures.
So the point I'm making is this money that came from COVID is supplanting our normal expenditures because we pay for those anyway, except for the bonus. We'd have to pay for PPE. So it is a net add. So I'm trying to understand, we need to supplement.
These are for additional items as a result of COVID. So when we bought a cleaning
No, we had
machine-
budgeted wages for those 2 months in the 20.
But we would never have bought PPE, we would have never
I
bought
know,
all the
but
sanitizer.
those were small amounts, under $50,000. So we already had the wages budgeted for the 2020 budget. We received reimbursement for 2 months from the state of Michigan.
We requested reimbursement for 2 months.
All right, we received half of
a
it.
portion of it
Which,
at this
yeah,
time.
we received half of it, but we have additional money, and I want to know where, from 2020, that will not have been spent. So I want to I want to understand and keep track of it, because it's additional money.
Right, and it will be recognized by the board, and it's being specifically tracked in a specific revenue fund as prescribed by the state of Michigan.
Right?
And the eligible expenditures have also been reported and submitted to the state of Michigan.
All right.
Ginger, we did not get revenue sharing this year, did we?
Yeah, we were told, yes.
We got
Or-
our
or
revenue
did this
sharing,
co-
what we did not receive in our August was our CVT portion.
Okay,
the
so
communities
part of
and
this
villages.
COVID money was to supplant the loss of revenue sharing or
Retrospect, it was
or
federal funding and plain
normal
state
money
share
that we
revenue.
would have received from the state.
But in the state report, the state said, and you confirmed it, Mark, that we were not going to suffer a reduction in state shared revenue for the 2020 year.
For 2021.
For tw-
We lost about 250,000 in state revenue sharing in 2020.
All right.
Now, they said that they're going to reinstate, that they're going to get back to normal levels in 2021. But we've lost about 250,000 in state revenue sharing. I don't have a figure off the top of my head, but we lost quite a bit of money in park. I'm just throwing off things off the top of my head. Park reservations that people went throughout the year in reserved parks. I bet you we lost a good $50,000 in park revenue because people had to cancel their reservations. Building department was way down because there wasn't a lot of construction activity that was taking place.
But building department is a separate, I mean, that's
I get all that.
self-sustaining.
And I understand what your
You
point is.
can't use
I would-
building department money elsewhere except in the building department.
I would say that when we put the pencil to paper and look at the 2020 budget as it comes to a conclusion, we probably ended up in the net positive because we got additional money from this payroll reimbursement through the COVID plan. But it's not 600,000. I would say it's in the range of 250,000.
Okay, we got 600,000. I think it's time for a good reconciliation when you get a chance. A good, clear, one-page reconciliation. Like to see that.
So
Revenue decreases, revenue increases, expenditures, a well-done schedule.
At the end of the calendar year?
Yeah, for
That should
2020.
be part of the budget amendment. I'm already putting those revenues into the budget amendment to be recognized
Yeah,
by
so
the
it-
board
it's-
in either
yeah.
the next meeting or the meeting after that,
Okay.
once we.
It won't be
have
extra
that.
work, but maybe to make it into executive-style understandability, it might be a little extra work.
So I don't necessarily want to belabor this point, but the budget you're presenting for 2021 shows a expected surplus of $661,100, correct?
As it stands today.
So theoretically, if the board wanted to spend some of that money for a purpose, it could lower that surplus number by saying we want to appropriate $100,000 for a new sound system
We've added
or
to the
something more
budget.
serious.
Or
But-
we could lower taxes.
Or we could lower taxes, right. So that's another idea, I suppose, here, because I'm confused. I think we're talking 20 revenue and expenditures, and this is a 21 budget, so.
Yeah.
Might,
2021
Right.
revenues are part of the winter levy.
But when money comes into the township, just because you go into a different year, doesn't mean it evaporates. It's still there.
At the end of the year, the total revenue and total expenditures for the entire year will determine what our surplus is to the fund balance at that time. We still have another 2.5 months to recognize expenditures, and we still receive some of those expenditures in January that were paid, that were for the month of December. So that will be presented as part of the audit presentation. We'll have an exact figure at that point. I can do some projections based on what we know today, and that will be part of the presentation when we do the budget adjustment.
so is this 447,800, is that a projection for what this year's surplus is?
Where are you at? Are you on the last page of the
No, I'm
general
on
fund
page
budget?
70 of the packet, your first page.
Page 70?
It's
the
page
packet.
1 of the
Yeah, page
presentation.
1 of the presentation.
That one, yeah, right there.
So the bullet right there at the bottom, current revisions, blah, blah.
These numbers are killing me.
It's the third bullet
I don't
point from the
know.
top.
Yeah.
Okay,
So is that 447,800, is that the expected 2020?
Okay, so in the proposed budget that was presented to you on August 31st, the proposed surplus was 447. That has now increased to 661, primarily due to the reallocation of the drug forfeiture funds that were allocated to for some of the expenditures from the police department. And those were included on that handout sheet, that email that I sent out. It has an example of the general fund revisions. It shows each of those items that were requested in the police budget at the September 22nd meeting. Those were revised and moved to either federal or state. They were also noted on the capital outlay portion of the budget, as well as within the police department, because I did revise the police department budget in your packet and indicated the items that moved to either federal or state drug forfeiture as eligible expenditures. There were some non-capital items like riot gear and a drinking fountain, and then there were capital outlay items for the purchases of vehicles. I think there was a Sally Port drain. There was some bulletproof glassing, some carpeting and things that had been requested by the police. Those were all moved to either the federal or the state. Those notes are contained within the police department's budget. The police department budget starts on page 54 is where it starts. So it's within that section of the packet for the police department.
Page what again? Say that again. Which page?
Police department
Yeah.
starts on budget page 54, so bottom right-hand corner of page 54.
So, okay. Let me see if I can find it.
I would probably jump to 100 or something. You're at,
General
It's
fund.
100 something. I can't see it all.
I can see 189 up there.
103.5.
Yeah, keep going.
General fund. General fund. General
Go above 100 if you're looking for page 54.
I would add, yeah, or they're at the top.
103.5.
See, you're only at page 18.
I guess I can't hear you.
Yeah.
I know, but it's
You're on
general fund.
page
So what,
54 of the budget packet.
I know, but I don't know how to find that.
I would go to page 100 or keep scrolling.
PDF over 100.
I get it now.
That could be it. No?
Yeah, keep going. That's just the slide. Yep.
Dun, 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 dun.
There's the
How
graph,
about this
there's
one?
the
This
change
one
year
I
over
can
year.
actually understand. Jesus.
So that gives you the side-by-side comparison for the function of the police department. As you scroll down, keep going.
Police department.
Keep going.
Yep, keep going.
Keep going.
I'm not sure where I'm
Keep going.
supposed to be going. We're back to the general fund again.
You're at general fund, page down.
We're at page 180, 127.
Right there, stop. In the center of the page, a revision to the budget for the non-capital equipment.
In the
Right
red,
here.
it's in red.
The amount of $14,000 went to the federal forfeiture fund. Non-capital equipment went to the state forfeiture fund for the touchless water fountain. And if you scroll down, those are the non-capital. Page down.
Page
Keep going.
what?
Keep
Keep
paging
going.
down. I'll tell you when to stop. Stop.
There you go.
Capital outlay requests in the police budget originally contained some vehicles for an expedition and upfitting that was moved to the federal forfeiture in the amount of $52,500. The Detective Bureau Explorer and outfit for $44,000. It's the state forfeiture fund, the painting, the carpeting, the Sally Port drain, and the bulletproof glass that I mentioned, all moved to the state forfeiture fund, which are also in your packet. So those revised drug forfeiture funds are in your packet, as well as the revised police budget.
Perfect.
Okay, what else where do you want to go next?
just taking questions at this point.
Okay, Jack? Oh.
So for the benefit of those who were concerned several months ago about the paths in Township Park, this budget includes funding to remediate those paths. Am I correct?
No, I mean, no.
You're talking about the pavement, the paths that are paved right now, asphalt?
I'm recalling to your attention the paths that people were lamenting their condition several
Okay,
months ago.
all right, oh, I get it. So we don't have to be dramatic. I'm just, I don't want to, we need to get an estimate on what that's going to cost, and we need to put it into the budget, okay? I don't know how much that's going to cost, Jack.
Well, I thought I saw it in here. That's why I was bringing it up. I thought there was 35,000 in here for that.
Oh, that was for the basketball court. We put it in 2022 just to take it out because they're using it still for picnicking or.
Yeah, that was for the removal of the old concrete basketball court.
Where is it?
It was originally in the proposed budget for fiscal year 2022 to remove or demo that basketball court.
Where is the basketball court?
It's behind the wooden play structure towards the creek. It's right there. You can
And so
see
why
it.
do you want to take it out?
Well, because it's dilapidated and it's unsightly, but apparently people are using it as a picnic area, so we figured we'll just keep it.
Yeah, good.
Talking about this?
No sense creating landfill. Or,
Okay,
good
all
idea.
right. We're not going to kill the planet by moving this, but we're going to just leave it. I mean, it's kind of ugly, but people are using it.
And it would cost $35,000 to take that out?
It was an estimate of what we believe the demolition to cost, and then once proposals were submitted and presented to the board, if additional funding would have been needed, we would have asked for an appropriation.
Yeah, it seems extremely high for the size, extremely high. It's only 4 inches thick. It can be broken with a sledgehammer.
So footings?
So why is it called,
Volunteering, Chuck?
I've done it. I bet I could do it still.
Good job. Thanks, Chuck. There you go.
I'm sorry,
Save money.
I'm just trying to clarify, where is that shown in this budget? That,
It was taken out. It was originally in the park budget. It would have been under capital outlay.
Okay.
It would be on budget page 97 of your
yeah,
packet.
could you go to page 97?
You're not going to see it there now because it was
Right.
removed.
Because it's gone.
Your 97 or my 97?
The 97 in the bottom corner, you want to go forward about 30 pages.
So
So you want to change the upper left-hand corner.
There you go, 97.
90, we're at 70.
But while we're doing the Where's Waldo
Way
here,
down.
I think it is a good idea to not take out the basketball court and maybe put that money to repair of the paths would be a better use. So let's think about that as an opportunity.
All
Okay,
right,
right.
so if we go up there,
Capital outlay for
Correct.
2021 includes the walking paths and trails,
of 35,000.
a wood chipper. wind
Stop,
washer.
please, stop, please. What is that 35,000 for walking paths / trails?
For the wooded area in the back.
Ah, okay.
What are you going to do to them? Put what do you
Well,
call it?
people have wanted paths back there for a long time, and, you know,
Wood chip.
Well, they are there. The paths are there.
yeah, well, they need to be rehabbed, and,
Yeah, okay.
you know,
Wood chips and things like that.
yeah, and we have to make it ADA compatible, and we have to get rid of the unpermitted bridges and structures that Mr. Mitchell and his associates made without permits or permission.
Well, I applaud that. I apologize. I misunderstood. I thought that was for the remediation of the asphalt, so.
I mean, I'm not opposed to that, Jack, but we would have to get some kind of estimate on what that's going to cost. It's not going to be 35 grand, but I would hope it's not going to be 300 either, you know.
So
Yeah,
since you're on this page,
Well, I was going to say, I'm surprised it would be 35, because it's really only a few areas, but.
But that is intended for the wooden area, the wooded
thanks.
area.
Appreciate
And that would be basically wood chips and trying to make it more up to safety standards.
don't make it level. It won't be any fun.
So maybe we could get some type of estimate number for that we could place in here as a placeholder. without trying to go through a bidding process.
I mean, Jeremy could put together something within the next, between now and November 10th. You could certainly, just back of the napkin sort of thing.
Yeah, exactly. That'd be great. I'd
I mean,
appreciate
we
it.
don't have to go out for bids or anything, just give us a rough estimate on what it would
Terrific.
cost.
Thank you.
Well, while we're playing with the park then, let's, how much to get rid of the geese?
That's a good point.
You know.
Need to have something in there for geese management.
Well, we've never done that before, so.
Yes,
is
we
that-
have.
Well, it's been a long time then.
Yeah.
The
because
I know.
dogs out.
There are companies who will do it. We've used rockets. I understand before I started here, I know we used rockets in the past. I know that the metro parks use a man who has dogs, who the dogs chase the geese.
Well, didn't we approve smashing eggs earlier this year in one of the other parks?
Well, we approved
No, it's
that
private
for a
property, that one.
homeowners
Private property?
association, yeah.
I mean, the geese numbers are astronomical out
Yeah.
there now.
And it is a health nuisance because you can get giardia from those animals. Wood chipper, are we buying it?
So that was planned and removed from the budget in 2020 as part of our COVID reduction. So it's been put back in as a cost share. DPW also has a use, so we're going to split the cost with DPW.
And golf
A
course?
portion of it would be purchased by the general fund, and then it could be used by both.
Golf course.
So golf course could share it?
The golf course is part of the parks.
Okay.
Possibly. I mean, I don't want the golf course people to abuse it because they could probably chip wood all day if they wanted to. There's a joke there.
How much wood? Good.
It involves woodchucks. I don't know.
And then the other item that was added since the proposed budget was the request for bike racks in the amount of 5,000 that was not in the original proposed.
As far as the 12 picnic tables go, we have the frames for 12 picnic tables that need wood replaced that are near the storage garage. I suggest that we redeploy those metal frames with new wood. Maybe a good project for Boy Scouts or Kiwanis or Rotary or something like that. It's dimensional lumber. It's not going to be like precision carpentry.
Well, if you could put that into an email, we'd take a look at it. But
All right,
I
there's
don't
12. You
know
can
what.
see them stacked up there when you enter the park.
The idea was to replace them so that they all look the same. If you've seen the new picnic tables at the Miller Park, those are the picnic tables that we were intending to buy for the entire township, replacing 12 per year until we've replaced all of the picnic tables.
Right. Well,
One for the.
it isn't a living room. We don't have to have it matched.
Okay. And then the other thing we're going to add, it's not in here yet, is we definitely have to make an improvement, a replacement on a component of the play structure at Lake Point Park. There is a tower element to that play structure which is shot, and you know, we can replace that one component for about $6,000. It's a lot more than I would like, but if we don't replace it, then really the entire structure is not usable, and it becomes a safety hazard.
So the parts are available is what you're saying?
Yeah.
All right.
So we're going to add that one. That was sort of a late addition that the parks people came at us with, which I'm not complaining. So
I'm sorry, can I circle back? Are we putting anything into contractual services for geese mitigation?
if your desire, but we would have to see what types of mitigation are available.
Need a cost.
I mean, I can contact the metro parks. I know that there's this man who has dogs, and the
Put
dogs.
$3,000 in for now.
Dogs, yeah.
Placeholder. 3,000 in
I like
placeholder.
that. That's a good number.
3,000.
We have some experience with it.
But we can't have dogs at the park, so that's going to be a problem.
We're going to work on that for next year, I hope.
At night you can.
Rover, Red Rover.
Well, these are serviced animals, so that's.
Yeah, so they get a waiver.
That'll be
Every day
different.
I've been in this week, they've had dogs in there, so it doesn't matter.
Okay. Let's see.
Any other questions?
Any other questions in recreation, Jack? I'm. Okay.
Good, thanks.
So a lot of these were things that we deferred due to COVID because we weren't sure how big the hit was going to be. But like the zero-turn lawnmower and the picnic tables and
Soccer field?
the soccer field fix on that's for the netting the netting at the,
Oh, along the road, M14?
I believe it's towards the rear. It's just in really bad shape. We tried to patch it up a little bit last year, but it has,
You might have to take a look at it along M14 also, because it was getting ragged. I don't know. Somebody's got to look at it.
Yeah.
yeah, I think that's what we're talking about.
It just keeps the ball from going out on M14 and causing people to get distracted.
Okay. Ginger, anything else you'd like to mention here? So I want to just talk really quick. Jerry's going to love me for this, but the clerk's department. So we're not looking at those huge expenditures that we've seen in years past. Fair statement?
What does that mean?
Well, they got a $240,000 reduction because no elections next year. Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah.
Well, the election function is separate from the clerk's function.
Okay. I mean, I just wanted to point that out. We're still going to need the equipment. We're still going to need all the computers and tallying machines and everything. But so the reduction in the clerk's office, will that be people? Is that part-time? Is that full-time?
The election reduction is the election workers.
Okay.
So it's primarily election workers, the FICA associated with that, the overtime, and then any additional training that might be needed or software that goes with the election to bring them up to speed on the current state law.
Okay. All right. Ginger, is there anything else that you'd like to bring to our attention? Any significant other changes? Any questions by the board?
So I don't recommend receiving and filing this. This will be an obsolete document effective tomorrow. So let's not file it.
Well, this is just budget discussion.
Yeah, this is just discussion.
Yeah.
But the point says recommended revise, that we receive and file. I don't recommend that.
It'll still stay as an official document as part of the
Pardon?
budget. It'll still be part of the budget
Sure.
packet and the presentation. And part
Yeah,
of
it's in the board
preparation.
packet, but we don't want to clutter up the system with this obsolete document.
Correct. I'll bring an official one to adopt at the November 10th meeting.
Ginger and Mark, you guys have done a great job putting things where they actually belong, and I really appreciate that. Thank you. Good job.
I didn't do it, so thank you to Ginger. But a couple things that unfortunately make this a little more complicated. Number one, the state of Michigan has changed their chart of accounts.
Yeah.
And they've been delaying the implementation of it, but the implementation of it is now upon us. So unfortunately, Ginger has been forced to change a lot of these numbers to conform with what the state of Michigan has now said is going to be the standard code for that. So across the state of Michigan, if somebody is looking for, salaries for police, everybody's going to have the exact same account. So we've had to do modifications for that. Ginger, of her own accord, has moved some things around to make better sense and better categorize our expenses. There is going to be a gap, right, because you'll see trends that say, we had something, we don't have something anymore. That's the unfortunate thing, but we'll catch up and the trends will make more sense in years to come. But probably the biggest contributor to that was the fact that the state of Michigan forced us to do it. And we figured as long as we're doing it, let's fix what we don't like and we'll just do it once and endure the pain.
Thank you. So the end result is it's difficult to compare with prior years.
Yeah.
So it becomes more of an obfuscating thing. Where's Waldo, right?
Well, we'll be performing a mapping function to merge those
I'm not that
charts
smart.
together.
It's still better than having everything thrown into general fund. So I appreciate the.
Yeah, the whole state will be looking for numbers. How do they compare from last year? Every township and city in the state.
Okay, I guess the board is all set. And Ginger, we want to thank you as well. This is by far the most professional-looking draft budget we've ever worked with here. So you're really taking us to a different level of professionalism, and it does take a little bit of getting used to, but there are a lot of changes. Some of them were not, as Mark pointed out, were beyond our control, but you've done a wonderful job of putting it all together, and laying it all out. And again, if the board has any questions or concerns relating to the budget, then we still have 2 more weeks, and then we will meet again on October 27th. Now, on that day, what we're going to do is do the water budget and the enterprise fund budgets, because Ginger would like to have us do all the budgets at the same time starting this year, which has not been done here before. What we will do then that night is we'll do a budget wrap-up on the 27th of October. That will allow us to make any additional changes, modifications, tweaks that we may have between now and then. And we can address things like the pathways at the park and maybe some other items. And then again, we would have the final budget adoption on November 10th, which is still pretty much a month from now. And again, one of the reasons I want to do that is because I want to give Mr. Dempsey and Mr. Heitman the opportunity to vote on this budget. You're familiar with it. You've asked the questions. You've got items in here that you would like, and I don't think it's fair to pass that on to a new board or new board members who aren't familiar with everything that went into this.
That's fair.
Any questions from the public at all? Okay then.
Thank you.
Very good. So I'm going to get back to my agenda here. Again, thank you, Ginger.
Thank you, Ginger.
And next up is item G. This is public comment. General public comment. Anybody in the public would like to speak at this time? Fabulous. Board comments. I'll start off. If somebody had told me tonight that we'd be out of here at 8:45, I would not have believed it. So thank you, everybody, for being here tonight. We've got some familiar faces. Some of you I haven't seen in quite a while. So thanks for coming, and thanks for learning more about what goes on here at Township Hall. As I pointed out, we will not be meeting again until October 27th. And at that point, what we've got on the agenda is the public hearing for the budget. We're going to have budget discussions, water and enterprise funds. Ginger does have some budget amendments possibly for us that night that may be part of the COVID revenue. We have a purchase of police radios, budget wrap-up, and more than likely we're going to have a closed session that night that I'll brief you on later. Otherwise, we're just plugging along here at Township Hall. Does anybody have any questions for me on anything?
Yeah, you're going to do, yeah,
Okay.
I have questions
I'll go
when you're
around.
ready to go.
I'll go around when we get to you. Okay, so that's all I have. Jerry?
Thank you very much. Just a little update for everyone on the election. We've sent out or had requested 13,000 absentee ballots. That's more than double what we did in 2016. A lot of it is a product of the change of Proposition 18.3, that we knew that we were going to be getting increases over time for absentee ballots as people got used to doing that. Of course, what accelerated this was the COVID situation. So we had a large increase in August and a massive increase now. We've received back already about 5,000 of those ballots. And I'm projecting that we're going to get anywhere from another maybe 1,000 to 1,500 more requests if things run in the same trend as they did in August.
Yeah.
And of course, as Chuck pointed out, it's a lot of expense to the township. It's a more expensive way to vote because you have all the material, you have all the people that have to process those things, and then the counting of it is requiring new equipment and new programs. So, but the staff has been stepping up to it. We've been putting in, 11, 12, 13 hours a day. They've been coming in early, staying late, working weekends. So the team has been working very, very hard. I'm very proud of them. And then, of course, our part-time volunteers who come in for this process have been doing just an outstanding job. As you know, the legislature has passed a law saying that we can open the ballots the day before, which runs from 10 a.m. to 8 p.m. Now, this is a limited procedure that will be us accounting for the ballot. We'll have,
Not counting.
accounting for the ballot. So we'll check off, precinct 1, ballot 1, check. Bob Smith, yes, that we've got that.
Will you check signatures or no?
Oh, yes, we've already checked signatures on the applications. When the ballot comes back, we check it again. It's checked a third time by the people who are doing this process of having the application and the ballot are married together so they can look and see that they are the same. And then they will open the ballot. They will take the ballot out in the secrecy sleeve, and then we will put that in piles of like 25. Also during that process, we have to organize and keep the application and the envelope so that at the end of the day, we have the same number of envelopes, same number of applications, same number of ballots, same number of ballot tabs that come off. It's all an accounting process. Imagine yourself working in a bank. The drawer has to balance or you don't go home. And so that's going to be what we'll be doing that day. Also, to let people, to belie any of their fears about anything happening to these ballots, they will be locked in this room. Outside of this room will be a police officer. We'll be here for the time period of 8 p.m. until 6 a.m. when we come back in. So we'll have and thanks to the police chief and the police department for allowing me to request that and them stepping up to just to make sure. This is a secure building. No one's going to get into here, but we just wanted to have that level of protection just to assure the public that nothing is going to happen to those ballots. So we're moving forward, and like I say, we're putting in a lot of hours.
And Jerry, I also want to point out that on Election Day, Township Hall will be closed for all but election operations. So what we're just asking people is on Election Day, if you have treasury issues, building issues, water issues, if you want to talk to the supervisor, just delay that, please. We are going to be basically drafting all of the union employees in this building to work on election-related items as assigned by the clerk. Some will be, some won't be, but we want to, it's going to be very chaotic here that day. We want to make sure that we're fully focused on the election, so we're going to just ask people only come to Township Hall on Election Day for election-related activities.
And as you recall, in the Proposition 8.3, some of the law was changed where you can come in on Election Day and register and get a ballot and vote it here. So we are expecting more traffic for that process. So I think it's ever more important that we try to limit some of the other functions going on just to make that a more smooth process.
Yeah, and we've already moved this building as a polling location.
That's correct.
So now it's been moved across the street to
Allen
Elementary.
Elementary.
So we're trying to just fully focus this building on election activities on Election Day.
Correct. Thank you.
A question, Jerry. The postmark 14 days after, what became of that judge's ruling?
Well, it's still out there, and I know it's being challenged.
All right,
It's being appealed. So
being appealed. Okay, so that's to be determined in the end. Yeah. Next item is, please make 100% sure that our generator is running in case we have a power failure. We've got to have power.
Yes.
That'll be a disaster if you don't have it.
Wow. Good job.
100% sure.
Yeah.
Good.
Not just on-
John Brothers,
Yeah, every day, yeah.
Lieutenant Brothers, we test it every Tuesday at 11 o'clock.
Yeah. Can hear it fire up.
So I'm going to pass it over to Bob now.
Nothing here, thank you.
Gary.
As Mark Corvo said, COVID cases are up. Today, Northville Township and Plymouth Township made up 12% of all new cases in Wayne County, excluding Detroit. So for God's sakes, wear your masks. Please be smart. Thank you.
Okay, Chuck.
I have two questions for the township engineer. Number one, 2 or 3 sentence status on the sidewalk repair program, dates, what happened?
As far as the sidewalk replacement program?
Yep,
So the sidewalk replacement program got delayed until next year, so at this point.
completely? Okay.
Yep.
So you're ready to go for next year?
We are ready to go for next year. JB Contracting, the one who bid on it, has agreed to stay their prices into next year.
Or lower them if things change, right?
We haven't gotten that far, but I know, prices are always going up.
They could go lower, you never know.
Could go.
And
What was that?
the pavement that was damaged as a result of the fire on General Drive, who's going to put the claim into the liability insurance of
Yeah.
the owner of the property?
Actually, there was a meeting today with Kevin Bennett and Chief Phillips. They went over the estimated damages, and Kevin will be summarizing all of our damages that we can identify. Where I'm not saying we're going to get reimbursed for everything, but we're going to give them a list of damages, and that will be coming from Kevin to the insurance carrier for the company that suffered the loss. And I don't, Chief, you want to add?
Were they insured?
Oh, yeah. Yes.
Okay, I'll just talk loud. I spoke with the insurance adjuster today that's doing the work. He is putting us in touch with the company's, I don't want to say CEO, the insurance company that covers the company. It's indemnified several different ways, but they will be working with us, and I told them that we're going to set a meeting up with Kevin, myself, and them, that they understand all the charges that we're going to be giving them, and they have the ability, to make sure it's all good and we get properly reimbursed.
I imagine that they were surprised that we were asking for money. Because most people don't imagine the road gets damaged like that.
At this point, they were surprised originally, but at this point, after a couple discussions, they are not surprised, and I think they're much more receptive to taking care of everything.
Nothing surprises them now.
Right. But they were surprised at the beginning.
In the beginning,
They thought everything was free.
they were absolutely surprised and were reticent to say anything.
But they remain very grateful for the job that this fire department had done to save the rest of that building. They
Oh, it
are
was saved?
tremendously, well,
The building, the structure was saved, the machinery inside, which is really where the value is,
right.
has been saved. The fire department is working with them this week, cutting the roof off the building,
Right.
bringing the machinery out so it can be rebuilt and put back in a new facility.
So why is Plymouth Township Fire Department working with them? What are you doing?
As they're cutting with the welding, there's still a lot of chemicals there that keep catching fire.
Yeah.
So they are actually paying us to stand by there and put fires out, so they don't have to call 911.
Good. Great. All right, I'm done.
Okay, Mark?
Just a couple quick things from me. So these projects are wrapping up, speaking of General Drive and Litchfield. So we're getting the final costs this week, and I will be sending out those bills, the SAD bills, to the homeowners and business owners next week for General Drive and for Litchfield. It will come with a letter that basically lays out what the financing options are. If I've not received their payment by mid to late November, then it will go on their winter tax bill in December, just like we've done for the previous SADs. Topic number, go ahead.
No, can you expand on the golf course situation?
Yeah, I was just going to do that.
Okay, good.
Yeah. So we got the latest financial status report from the managers of the golf course, which takes us through September. These guys are really doing a good job for us. I don't know if anybody's played or walked or driven by the golf course, but it's in the best shape that I've seen this thing in many, many years. From a financial standpoint, through September, so you have to remember what the arrangement is. We pay them a $7,000 management fee up front in February, and then they're on their own. They're taking all the risk for all the revenue and all the expenses from that point going forward. Through the end of September, they've made about $108,000 profit through the management of the golf course. Now it's going to slow down, right, because not much revenue coming for the rest of the year, and they still have expenses. But their estimate is that they're going to end up anywhere, probably right around the $60,000 profit range, anywhere between $50,000 and $70,000 profit for this year. Now, remember, the arrangement is that we split those profits 50-50. So what you're going to see in the next budget adjustment from Ginger is in this year we will recognize, or we're going to budget an additional $25,000 of revenue, which will be our 50% share of the golf course. What I'd like to recommend for your consideration is I'd like to take that $25,000 next year and reinvest it in the golf course. There's always things that you can do to improve. They have drainage issues. They need more trees trimmed and taken out. The sand traps are aged. The golf cart paths need some work. It's my estimate that if we reinvest that money, we will get that money back the following year. But it's like any asset like your home. You have to keep putting a little bit of money in to those assets. So we'll see $25,000 of revenue this year. In the next amendment of the budget, it would be my recommendation that we spend that $25,000 to improve the golf course.
We gave them nothing, right?
Ironically about that, I think in 2013, when there was money borrowed, and part of that bill of materials or itemized list of things that it was targeted for included the golf course cart pass, and the money instead was spent on the super pavilion.
Interesting.
Yeah.
But again, think of the turnaround. When we had Billy Casper here, we were losing between $120,000 and $150,000 per year on that golf course. Now, this is a different financial arrangement, but they've turned this thing around to the point, anywhere between $100,000 and $120,000 turnaround.
And remember, when we gave them this contract, basically, we didn't give them anything else. We just said, here's the golf course, go do it, right?
Well, we gave them $70,000 seed money.
Well, yeah,
Right.
but they do have all of the things that Mark said, all the tree issues, all the cart issues and everything else. And, they've done a hell of a job.
Well, yeah,
Really,
and
really
they
good job.
spent this winter, they were out there with tree trimmers cutting branches all winter long and shredding them. And see, if we had a wood chipper, we could have done all this. But they chopped them. Anyway, I won't belabor the point, but I'm very pleased with the job that they're doing for us. And I think it's showing up in terms of number of rounds played and the financial performance of the golf course.
Yeah, just another example. Plymouth Township received, COVID rained money on us. Isn't that amazing?
Yeah. And we had a nice weather season for golf.
Yeah, we did. Okay. Well, and golf was very good in general in Southeast Michigan because it was a very quick recreational activity. It was permitted by the governor very early as opposed to other recreational opportunities, and local courses were just the type of thing that you could go to, play around, and come home. You didn't have to travel anywhere or assume any other costs or risks or anything. So we all did well. Okay, then, we're all set. Then I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Mr. Supervisor,
Mr. Heitman.
I move we adjourn at 9:02 p.m.
Motion made by Trustee Heitman, seconded by Clerk Vorba. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. We are adjourned.